and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm just going to share again some of the things that I did. I think that's some of the best things that I find within Teacher YouTube. It's just different activities and different ways of doing things. So I'm going to share just a few things that we did this week. Reading, right now we are focusing on some figurative language, and we're just focusing on two right now, so similes and metaphors. And then we are really focused in on theme. That's what we did this week. So, you know, we've watched a couple videos on theme, and we've talked about different themes. And what I realized was, like, my kids got the gist of what they were supposed to learn, but they didn't quite know how to word that. So there was a video that I had showed them that talked about the different a way of coming up with a theme statement. And so I will try and remember to link that video below, because it was a YouTube video, but it talked about how first you got to choose the text. Most of the time we obviously give that to them, but then they would come up with different topics that surrounded that piece of text. And then they would write a sentence that the author believes. So it would start with the author believes that, and they would fill that in about, they would choose one of those topics and they would fill that in with the topic. So if it was friendship, what did the author believe about friendship? And so they would write that sentence out, and then we would take away the author believes that, and that would leave them with a theme statement. And that really helped a lot of my kids that were struggling with that. So that was really good. Another activity we did is I realized that they didn't know a lot of themes. Like, they were getting the gist of it, but to come up with a theme, they weren't sure, and even topics. So we took a day to just do a little bit of research, and we talked about how the topics are, you know, usually 1-2 words, every once in a while 3 words, but it'd be a short phrase or word, where a theme would be a complete thought. And so we talked about how sometimes it could be, you know, just it's about friendship, but what about friendship? And so they had a hard time with that a little bit, just coming up with ideas. So we took a day to just do some research, and I said, I want you to find different theme topics, and I also want you to find different theme statements, and we're gonna make a poster out of that. And so they put this in their folder that we have a folder that has like everyday things that we use in it. And this would be like one example. So here are different themes that she found, and here were some of the topics, and she's wanting to decorate it since it's something we're going to use for this whole unit. But this is kind of what we did. I didn't care how they did it. I showed them like 3 or 4 different ways of doing it. And so they were able to be a little bit creative and pick out themes that spoke to them or ones they've never heard of. And the same way with topics. And they realized a lot of that went with, we're a class school, and so a lot of that went with the lifelines that we learn about within our classroom too. So they really enjoyed that. I have an artsy class, so they really enjoyed that. They look great. I like it. All right, thank you. The last activity that we did this week on theme is I gave them, they got a partner, and they were able to choose a picture book. And so they were to read that picture book together and use what we had learned about writing a theme statement. So we, going back to that video. And in order to do that, I had just created this worksheet on Canva. And so they have to write what text they're reading. So the title is going here. As they read it, they can write down different topics that they notice. And a lot of them had their sheet out that they had made because they were getting confused between the two. So they made a list of 3 to 5 topics, and then they chose one of those topics and wrote it into a sentence that said, the author believes that, whichever one they chose, they would finish that statement. And then they took those beginning words off and rewrote just the theme statement. And this seemed to go really well. They were really engaged with the books. I allowed them to choose their books. Just group one got to choose first, but some of the books that I used was The Giving Tree, Bad Case of the Stripes, A Bad Seed, or The Bad Seed, and also The Good Egg, although I don't think anybody chose this one. The Curious Garden, Those Shoes, I Am Enough, Amazing Grace, Chrysanthemum, The Day the Crayons Quit. I don't think anybody chose this one. Last Stop on Market Street, so I'll use that this week. Nobody chose After the Fall either, so I will use that this week, or this coming week, to do more with theme. And Rosie Revere the Engineer. So those were the books that they had to choose from, and they were really engaged. They seem to really enjoy picture books, and I try and use them quite a bit within my class. I think it's fun to read to them. They enjoy it, and you can always get a lot of writing and reading skills out of them. Take a second and check out these clips with our reading this week.
Dreary. Do you know what? This is one of my favorite books.
So that is what we did with theme this week. As far as similes and metaphors goes, we just watched a couple videos and talked about a lot of different vocabulary with it and what those look like and the difference. And so next week I'll have a few activities to go along with similes and metaphors that you'll get to see. So in math this week, we are learning multiplication of whole numbers. And so we started out with multiplying by powers of 10.
Standard form.
Exponential form. Exponential form.
Good job. Exponential form. Everybody say exponential form. Again, exponential form. Not everybody saying it. Again.
Exponential form.
And the kids love that because obviously once they figure out the pattern and how our base 10 number system plays into that, they loved it because it's easy and it's quick, and this group struggles with math a little bit. So we did that. Then we went into estimating, and now we are they did the area model. Today we did the partial products. Some of them like that, most of them did not. They struggled with that a little bit. And so starting next week, we will go into the standard algorithm because that is our standard for 5th grade. And I foresee we're gonna need to do that multiple days because they struggled a little bit with the partial products and just being, really, they're not struggling with that. They're struggling with their math facts. And I keep telling them, like, math is so much easier if you memorize those math facts. And I feel like as teachers, as professional people in education, or even people who aren't in education, they don't feel that the memorization of math facts is important anymore. However, as a teacher, what I see is not making our students memorize math facts is causing them to be behind in math because it is taking them so long to do a multiplication problem because they are constantly counting out everything because we never make them memorize them anymore. And I think that is across our country. And I think there's something to working our memory and being able to memorize things. Our kids can't do that. Like, they have phones, they have tablets, and I think we are losing a lot in making our kids memorize things. But most of my kids, I think I only have 3 or 4 out of 22 that I can say truly know their math facts. Not that they can't count or anything, but they're exhausted after doing 2 or 3 problems because it takes them so long, and then they don't want to practice. And so I just wish as educators, we would see the importance of repetition and memorization. Do I think that belongs with everything we do? No, but I do think it belongs with a lot of things that we do. So that's my soapbox on that. It's just some of the things that I'm frustrated with in education, and I think those are a few things that need to change. But anyway, so that's what we're doing in math. In writing, we have been working on compound and complex sentences. And this week we did some task cards around the room so I could see where they were with that. And we definitely still need a little bit of practice. A lot of putting clauses up on the board and allowing them to join them. The other thing that I use to help us teach it and to move things around is this. Let me show you. So you can see this, all these different pieces, and I put them up and kids come up and move them around to put them in a way that makes sense. So the students are able to come up and manipulate these and move things around. And so if we're talking about a complex sentence, they know that they need an independent and a dependent clause. And we talk about when it needs when it needs a comma, and then, the different conjunctions. And it's nice because it does have the name of the conjunctions that go with it. And I've made multiple copies so that we can do both types of complex sentences, having the dependent clause come before the independent, when we use the comma, when we don't. And the kids like this because they can come up and move it and manipulate it. And this is one way that we review those every day. And we are still working on our Shirley jingles, and we're doing a sentence just once a week now or so, because I'm only doing the basic parts of speech with that. And then next week we're going into some informative writing, and so that's my favorite writing to teach, just because it's so, if you do it this way, you can write a basic 5-paragraph essay. Now, it's basic, but I can get a kid to write a 5-paragraph essay. So, and again, I use what I remember from Shirley English writing. So that's where we're going next week. So really, that's it for this week. Not a whole lot to show, but I hope that you're getting something out of it. I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Help my channel grow.